What do you reckon, Faye? Should we get started or?
Yeah, definitely. It's 1 minute past. That sounds about appropriate.
All
So
right, I'll leave it to you.
I'm not going to say a lot. This is Sophie Black. She's amazing filmmaker, director, producer, everything. Award-winning. And she's going to take you through all these amazing things she does. A lot of short film stuff, which is great because that's really kind of links a lot to what we're doing with the film students. Okay, whilst you're saying YouTube won't work. Oh, for Fred's. Okay. So without further ado, Sophie, I'll let you talk about yourself, and I'll mute myself for now, and then I'll pop in with students' questions in a bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Let me know when the PowerPoint's showing okay.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you very much. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for having me, and happy International Women's Day. I feel very privileged to be invited today of all days, and it's lovely to talk to you all, and I hope that what I have to share will be useful or at least partly entertaining for the next half an hour or so. And yeah, so I'll open up my PowerPoint now. Let's see if this works. Oh, I'm not showing my screen, am I? Hang on. Technical stuff. Faye, is that sharing?
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic. So just to start off, yeah, as Faye said, my name's Sophie Black. I'm a filmmaker. I'm also the founder of a production company called Triskelle Pictures. And just before, to start the presentation off, I thought I'd show you all a little showreel of my company, work that I've directed and produced over the last decade or so. So hope you enjoy. Yeah, that was just a little show reel of the short films, commercials, music videos, all the stuff my team and I have made. I hope you enjoyed that, and it woke you up with that violin dubstep power. Here's the name of the track, which always makes me laugh. Okay, so how did I start out? I started out way back in the day, basically doing what you're all doing now. I went to film school after initially making films with my friends in high school and making them play all the parts. This was the days before everyone had phones, cameras on their phone, so it was a bit harder to get cameras. There was no YouTube, so I just had to kind of learn as I went along and make mistakes. But it was a good time. It was a lot of fun. And film school, yeah, absolutely loved that. Gave me my first opportunity to make short films. My graduation film was my first festival film, my first film to get into festivals, the opening night. And I also had the opportunity to make commercials for the first time as well, and got paid work that way. So it was the University of Creative Arts, if anyone's curious, in Farnham in Surrey. And I graduated in 2010 with a BA in film production. So I was at that point, very similar point to what you're all at now. And when I was at film school, we were all given the opportunity to specialize in one area of film. We learned, probably, I don't know if that's what you're all doing, but first year we learned about everything to do with film and filmmaking. Second year onwards, we had to specialize in one area. And I always wanted to be a director, and I directed, as I said, my high school films, I directed, no problem at all. But I decided not to specialize in directing for a couple of reasons. firstly, nerves, confidence, imposter syndrome that we all have. And also because I wanted work, I wanted skills that I could use on set. I wanted to graduate and get on film sets as soon as possible, and I wanted employable skills. And I'd always loved production design. I did theatre design and textiles at school, so I specialised in production design and decided to apply for art department work when I graduated, and I got it straight away because there was no one doing production design in the Derbyshire area at the time. There's still very few people doing it, so I was invited onto film shoots straight away, including features as well as shorts and commercials, and I started out that way. I also know that a lot of the people at my film school who specialised in directing then didn't actually start directing. Many of them started out as runners, or they went into completely different careers. Some of them left the film industry altogether. Only a few have since gone on to do directing, and it's taken a while, because if you specialize in directing, you don't really get as many employable hands-on skills off the bat. So that's kind of worth bearing in mind. If you want to be a director, it's probably worth getting some other skills that you can use, because I genuinely believe that you shouldn't be a director anyway until you've been a member of crew, because you need to know what you're asking of your team. You need to know what it feels like for the people at the bottom of the chain as well as the top, because they're never going to be as in love with your film as you are, and they'll be the ones kind of doing a lot of hard work, getting tired without that kind of motivation. So it's really important to know what it's like to be a member of crew, to graft and to work your way up before. And it also gives you a better understanding of different crew roles if you've done them. So again, you know what you're asking of people. So yeah, I'm really, really glad that I started out not directing and then worked my way up. And the best thing about doing a different crew role and being a member of crew is that it gave me the opportunity to network. Every bit of downtime we had, every lunch break, I would then have loads of people to talk to, camera operators, sound guys, that kind of thing. And we'd all bond and we'd all chat. And I made friends that way, as well as, you know, proving that I was hardworking and fairly good at my job. And again, that's probably the biggest takeaway from that point in my career, was being friendly, being memorable, and showing that you're a team player and a grafter helps you meet loads of people, helps you network. And because I built up that network by doing those roles, I was then eventually able to admit, I want to be a director, I have ideas, I have stories to tell. And by that point, I had a network of people who were willing to help me do that. And they were said, well, yeah, we love working with you, we'll help you make your film. And that's what I did. And that's how my first professional short, Ashes, got made, purely because I called on all the friends I'd made by networking on film shoots, and they helped me get that one made, which was fantastic. And that was in 2012. Around the same time, another DOP director I'd met asked if I would produce his short film, just because we'd worked together and become friends and we liked each other's work. And that short ended up essentially kickstarting my career and changing my life, because that film was called Stop Eject. And I produced Stop Eject with very little experience, age 23. I was 25 by the time it came out, and it premiered at Rain Dance and then was longlisted for Best British Short Film at the BAFTAs, which made it the top 15 short films in the country. And I'd gone from being a production designer, basically networking with friends and building up my wolf pack, as it were, to suddenly being a BAFTA long-listed producer. And I never even intended to produce. And that's what came from the networking and from being a member of crew and working my way up. And I've got a little clip to show you. This is the trailer for that film, Stop Eject.
This will be the last one, I promise.
Go. Play. Have fun.
Turn over the cassette now.
Hello? Hang on. You're breaking up.
How do I stop this?
You're breaking up.
You're This tape recorder shows your life and yours alone.
Nice headphones.
You're my destiny.
There must be other options.
You've got to help me.
What do we do? Do you have any plans for Christmas? Aren't you going to spend it with your family?
Here's my family.
Fab, that stop eject. Faye, is everything playing okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. There's a tiny bit of lag on the video, but I think that's a bit par for the course with these things.
Okay, they're all online, so we can share links as well. Like every clip I show is also on YouTube. So, okay, but yeah, that's Stop Eject, which is 10 years old this year, which makes me feel very, very old. I feel like my babies are growing up and it makes me feel very strange. But anyway, so off the back of Stop Eject and Stop Eject success, the same team then got together again and I got to direct again, and we decided to make a feature pilot for Night Owls, which is a film I've been working on since my teens as a feature, and that was the plan. Make a short film as a proof of concept to hopefully get a feature off the ground. And the short itself was it did really well as a short in itself, and it gave me my first credit as a director that was a BAFTA qualifying credit because it premiered at London Short Film Festival in 2016. And the important thing then is that because I had a BAFTA qualifying festival credit to my name as a director, I was able to enter BAFTA Crew, which I'll talk about a bit later, but it's kind of essentially a sort of a program for the next level filmmakers to help get them experience in mentoring and that kind of thing. And it also prompted me at that point to register my production company, Triskelle Pictures, which then became the logo on all those films. And again, I'll talk about production companies a bit later. So I've got a little trailer just to show you a bit of Night Owls as well, which is here.
I'm not meaning to be funny, but can I come in?
Your eyes were red and your face was tight.
Until the rain stops. After that.
And then I'm gone, like I was never here.
Fly, fly. Take flight.
Either I'm stoned or you're speaking more clearly to me than anyone else in years.
Oh, if you were mine.
So that's the trailer for Night Owls, and again, they're all on YouTube if it's not playing okay. But so we'd gone, my team and I had built up, we'd done a few shorts by that point. Stop Eject was, like I said, BAFTA longlisted. Night Owls premiered at BAFTA Qualifying Festival, London Short Film Festival. And so where do we go from there? Having done a few shorts that have done well at festivals, bigger budget shorts. And so we decided to then step up again and always try and better ourselves. And we decided to make a fantasy film, because I'm a huge fantasy nut. And we crowdfunded this one and decided, because we wanted to make a sort of a bigger film that reached more people, we would find someone with a fairly strong following to be the lead role. Similar with Stop Eject, we found Georgina Sherrington, who had been in ITV's The Worst Witch in the 90s, so she was fairly well known at the time. We found Janet Devlin to be in Songbird. She was a contestant on The X Factor and is now a singer-songwriter in her own right and has a very strong online following. And we knew at our level we wouldn't be able to get anyone like A-list actors or anything, but we got someone with a decent following, a lot of fans, and someone we knew people would want to see in films. And also because we knew Janet would be perfect for the role. And so not only having Janet on was brilliant, it also massively changed our ability to raise funds, because we did a crowdfunding campaign for Songbird, as we had done for every other film that we'd done. We asked for 7,000 and we raised nearly 16,000 pretty much overnight, because she already had a lot of fans and they were willing to support anything that she did. And they were lovely and really supportive of us as well. And so I would recommend that if you are stepping up, you want bigger budgets, think outside the box for your casting, find someone who has an online following, whether or not they're an actor, hopefully they are an actor, and do it that way is a really good way of getting extra funds for crowdfunding. I will say fantasy films, if you do love them as much as I do, they are not as popular at festivals as drama films are. And it was a lot harder to find a home for Songbird at festivals. It wasn't really the kind of, it doesn't have the same success story as Stop Project and Night Owls, but a lot of people really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was really, really fun to make. So, and it also grew our social media as a result. And here is a trailer for Songbird. This is the last video clip. This is the trailer from Songbird.
Never venture there without somebody by your side, 'cause child, you'll never know what you'll find.
Listen, Jennifer, you got a gift, okay? Use it.
I used to have a voice like yours when I was younger. I'd like to have it back. Just relax. It'll soon all be over.
So that's Songbird. So that's kind of a just whistle stop tour of my credits kind of over the first 10 years of my career. And what I hope is clear here is that I started out making small films with my friends, and they get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger each time until you end up raising quite a lot of money on crowdfunding campaigns, and then you make bigger and bigger shorts. And then the bit of filmmaking that no one told me about when I first started out is kind of what do you do when you've made multiple short films and they get bigger and bigger and bigger? Where do you go from there? And this is the part where a lot of filmmakers struggle, because if you have bigger and better ideas but they're still short form, there is not much funding out there for you. It's very hard to find funds for short films with budgets that are bigger than 15,000. So obviously the next step, logistically in your mind, would be making features, which is also something I am dying to do. Features are impossible to get off the ground without investment, unless you can make something really, really small and you can get a load of people willing to make it for free with you, which is great if you can do that. But it's very, very hard to make people work for free, particularly on features. Shorts, you can usually get away with it. Features, you can't. So it's a massive, massive waiting game. It is very hard to not be discouraged. I've been doing this nearly 20 years and I've had people telling me, I'm definitely funding your film. You've definitely got the investment. And it's fallen through. And that's happened to me 3 times. And it is a very difficult time. You do get discouraged. You've made loads of shorts. You feel like you've proved yourself. And it's at this stage when most filmmakers, they kind of drop off. They quit, they give up, they go back and they do something else. Or they just enjoy making a living, making films for other people, and or being a member of crew. This is the part where it's so hard to not be discouraged, but many filmmakers go through it, and I've spoken to other people at this phase, and we all call it the limbo period or the glass ceiling, and that glass ceiling is super, super hard to break through. And I'm at the point of breaking through now, after essentially feeling like my career maybe would have stalled, but I also feel like I've used that time well, as well as working on features all this time, trying to get them off the ground, trying to get bigger shorts off the ground. What I would advise from having been through this period is use that time wisely. Do not get discouraged. Keep writing, keep pitching, but also use that time to think outside the box. Reach out and network more, reach out to more experienced filmmakers at this stage. Now you've got loads of shorts under your belt that are good calling cards, that you've got your BAFTA qualifying credits under your list. Now is a great time to reach out and try and get shadowing opportunities. It's also at this stage that you can apply for BAFTA Crew, which I mentioned before, because BAFTA Crew, I'm not sure exactly what the rules are. I've been accepted into it twice now. You do get to go to BAFTA. That's me at the BAFTAs because of being a member of BAFTA crew, which is awesome. That's the mega upside of being a member of BAFTA crew. But you also get invited to lots of seminars with industry figures and lessons and pitching workshops and just loads of things designed to inspire you and improve and increase your career. And yeah, when I joined BAFTA crew, you needed at least 2 BAFTA qualifying credits or relevant TV credits, or there's a few other ones. I was accepted, like I said, because of Night Owls being screened at London Short Film Festival. That's why they let me in. Directors UK, if you want to specialize on directing, again, they accept you at this kind of level and they give you seminars and more lectures. You get invited to talks at BAFTA as well there. And also you can do the Directors UK Inspire mentoring scheme where you get paired up with another more experienced filmmaker. And so there's loads of things you can do at this stage to help because you've got those credits under your belt, you've got calling cards. This is a really good point to, like I said, further your career, network, and try and get yourself out of the rut because it will happen at some point and you never know which short is going to be the one to break you out of this phase. It's also at this point, which is the way I've moved forward, is you can now apply for, if you've got those relevant credits, if you've got a proven track record, it is at this stage that you can apply for BFI funding, which I did, and I was very, very lucky. As of last summer, I was accepted for BFI funding for a short film project called Room 515. Again, because of the track record I had already, and because they saw me as a trustworthy investment, they gave me 15,000. And we've just wrapped, as of last week, we've just wrapped that short film that is now in post-production. That film, like I said, has a working title of Room 515, and that should hopefully be the next one coming out now. And touch wood, you never know how these films are going to go. I hope it's going to go very well, but usually films with a BFI logo on the front do tend to get into bigger quality festivals, and they can be career boosters for everyone involved. So yeah, there is your lifeline at that point. The BFI is there for you once you've proven yourself, and they're really, really friendly and willing to support British filmmakers in particular, and women, because Women's Day. So that's a whistle-stop tour of my career to date and how I got from where I was in film school to where I am now. And just quickly going to go through a few things from my filmmaking career that I think are really, really important to know about. And again, stuff that I wish had been told to me, maybe at the level that you all are all at now. So, number one, filmmaking to pay the bills. Because directing, I've still never made money as a narrative director. I know you certainly can, but it's never actually happened. None of my films, my short films have really, some have made some money, but you usually just kind of break even. So you do need to earn money somehow. And there's multiple options here. I've done most of them at some point or other. You can work for a corporate film agency, which is very secure money, and at least you're still making films and you're still keeping the muscles going. It's not as creative and it can be a bit frustrating, but it's very secure work. So you can do that. I worked at a corporate film agency for 7 years, really, really loved most of it as well. It's only recently I've stopped working there and gone fully self-employed, but that's definitely one option you can do. Working with clients directly, that is how I earn my money at the moment. Through my production company, Triskelle Pictures now makes commercials and music videos for arts-based businesses, and that's going really well. And it's fantastic because if you own your own business, you can kind of be a bit more picky about who you make videos for. And every video I'm making now feels like a proper calling card for myself as a creative, and it's just wonderful and I absolutely love it. But again, I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I hadn't made lots of less attractive commercials back in the day and cut my teeth and worked my way that way. And also because I already had that experience from working at a corporate film agency, that gave me a lot of business knowledge, and it gave me the confidence to kind of run my own business and to be a bit more selective. So I wouldn't recommend that off the bat, but you could just be self-employed and just work on anything and not be picky. That's also really good. There's lots of entry-level positions on places like Doctors. Doctors has a film studio based in Birmingham, and they are always kind of keen to support East Midlands, West Midlands talent. So you can try and get some shadowing experience there, that kind of thing. And down the line, there's things like the 4 Stories scheme, which you can apply to when you've got a few credits, and they will help give you your first directing job in Channel 4 and make it a Channel 4 TV show. Or the other option is basically you can do a normal job and make films at the weekends and in the evenings and try and not get too tired. And I know loads of people who've done that. There's loads of success stories of people who've done that. If you're not picky about what pays the bills, then that's a great way of doing it. Peter Jackson, who directed Lord of the Rings, when he started making films, he worked at a newspaper printing place. He printed the newspapers and he used all his money to fund his films on the weekend and was perfectly happy. I know other filmmakers who've done that, and yeah, that works really well. Or yes, you can be a member of crew like I was with production design and just work on other people's films as well and work your way up that way. The only one I haven't done, just quickly before I move on to the next thing, the only thing I haven't done is working as an entry-level position on big studio films. Even films like Marvel, James Bond, that kind of thing, you can work really low down, make cups of coffee and work your way up. That's a really good thing to do in terms of you get experience for what it's like being on those shoots, how it's run, how it's different to independent films. So that's always kind of a good option to do. The reason I haven't done it is because I know from speaking to people who have done it is that it takes a long time to work your way up the ladder. By the time you have worked up the ladder, you have amazing experience and amazing CVs and your credits on your CV. But I'm too impatient. I want to be I want to be telling my stories now. I can't wait. So I'd rather be just getting out and making them as soon as possible rather than working my way up. I'm not saying that's the right way to do things, but that's the way I went with that stuff. In terms of film funding, I've done 11 crowdfunding campaigns now, most of which were successful. Back when I first started them, they were a massive novelty. Not many people were doing them, and it was a lot easier to get £3,000, £4,000 like that. And as I said, Songbird was very successful. There's only so many times you can ask people for money before they get sick of it. You see the same people funding you about 3 times and then dropping off. So it is, and there's so many people crowdfunding now, it's really, really hard to stand out unless you have a well-known crew member or a well-known person in your cast or some sort of pull. I did a crowdfunding campaign for a Batman fan film, and that one went fairly well because Batman already has an existing fan base. I didn't need to work hard to build up that fan base. So you can crowdfunding, yeah, definitely do it, but think about ways to be successful with that. Private investment, if you can find it, is the best way of doing it. It's really, really hard to find private investment, but there are lots of billionaires out there who like film. Personal loan, don't do it. I've done it before. I don't think I've paid it off yet, but that was about 10 years ago. So don't do it unless you've got lots of secure money. BFI network funding, as I said, once you have certain credits, you are then qualified to apply for BFI funding. You have to have done certain level of shorts before. They have to have been shown at certain festivals, or you have to have work on TV, radio, and it's very competitive because everyone's going for it. Or think outside the box. This picture is me. I was basically saying I would wear that t-shirt every day until my film got funded, which got very stinky and ridiculous and wasn't overly successful, but it made a lot of people smile. I got a few donations that way. I've done things where we've had sponsored talks and given lectures on filmmaking and literally passed a bucket round to get money for films, bake sales, that kind of thing. Oh, and if you do crowdfunding, don't forget you then somehow need to pay for all the rewards you're promising. So don't promise a million t-shirts and DVDs if people still want DVDs and stuff that you then can't afford to make because you've made your film. So just a little tidbit on crowdfunding. This is very quickly on this one, production company. I do own a production company, as I said, and it's now what I use to make all my clients work. And if you do want to go for BFI funding, you do need to have a limited production company set up. There's also tax rebates for production companies for films made in the UK. But you can also apply for BFI funding with someone else who already has a production company. You don't, as a director, need to have a production company. It's usually the producer that has it. And also you do need to remember that basically you have to fill in taxes and accounts and everything every single year if you own a limited production company. So don't just do it out of vanity. That's actually what I did. I thought, oh, I'll register my production company, it'll be fun, not knowing that while I was a very broke independent filmmaker back then, I would still had to file all these fees and pay lots of bills and pay GDPR fees and everything, even though I wasn't making much money at the time. So don't do it until you actually really, really need it, if you are going to do it. And it's also worth bearing in mind that if you own a company, if you set up a company, you are not a freelancer. You are not self-employed. You are employed by your production company, and it's a different kettle of fish. So if you want to be out making films and freelancing and that kind of thing, yeah, think about whether or not you actually need a production company. Do you want to be a freelancer? Do you want to be a free agent? Don't just set up a production company because you think you're the next Spielberg, like I foolishly did when I set mine up. So, but if you are going for big clients, big corporate gigs, that kind of thing, you do sound more trustworthy if you are a limited company. You sound bigger than you are, and that impresses people. But that's probably only worth doing if you're going for like big lawyers and accountants and that kind of thing as your clients. It doesn't really matter if you're just making films for cafes and that kind of thing. They're not going to be as impressed. Film festivals, just quickly on this one as well, because this is something I get asked about a lot. I have shown my films at, I've lost count at how many film festivals I've got into. I still remember the first one I got into because I remember how excited I was, and it's still really, really exciting. Are they worth doing? Yes, but with a but. Obviously, if you get a film showed at a massive film festival like Sundance, Raindance, Slamdance, Berlin, Toronto, it changes your life. You essentially are a trustworthy filmmaker, and your career just skyrockets. However, it is really, really hard to get into because a million people are going for the same slot, and they tend to have only a few slots for your short films. So it's really hard to get into, and they are very, very expensive. Berlin is £50 to enter now. I think Toronto is about 70. And if you haven't got a lot of money and you're basically not, you're not going to get into it, then it's probably not even worth it. I will say that Cannes is the biggest film festival in the world, and it is free to enter. So you might as well, but you need to have premier status. You need to have not shown the film anywhere else if you do go for Cannes. I've been to Cannes. If anyone has any questions on Cannes, I've been as an attendee, and I've had a short film up for sale there, so I can answer questions on that one. But smaller film festivals, moderate and smaller film festivals, some of them are still really, really great. There's still quite a few BAFTA qualifying films that aren't A-list, but they do help your career, like London Short Film Festival, like I mentioned before. And even ones that aren't BAFTA qualifying at all can be absolutely lovely. Some have money you can win, some have really great networking events, and you can build up your repertoire that way and meet different people. And it's just lovely seeing your film on a big screen and seeing it with an audience. The short cinema in Leicester has a massive capacity for loads of people to see your film, and it's not BAFTA qualifying or anything, but the atmosphere is amazing. Everyone's cheering and watching your film, and it's lovely. And that should really be the main thing for you, is seeing your film on a big screen and seeing it with people. So go for those festivals. They're always really, really great. And I do say, I have been told recently I need to do this more actually, and that is, if you don't get into big festivals, but you want to see what kind of films they are accepting, go along anyway, swallow your pride when you've been rejected and go to those festivals, see what kind of films do get accepted, so you know how to improve your work next time, and you can meet filmmakers who are at that level who might be able to give you some advice. So definitely go along to more film festivals that are A-list, whether or not you get into them. And also be aware of scams. There are a million film festivals out there that are rubbish and will do absolutely nothing for your career, that will take your money and you'll never even see any result. Some of them are online festivals. Some of them don't even screen your film online. They are just awards events. So you pay 30 quid for them to send you a certificate, and it does nothing for your career. Unless you want to buy it, like if you think your poster hasn't got enough laurels and you essentially want to buy a laurel, then you can do it that way. But the moment you start advertising on Twitter that you finished your film and you're going to festivals, loads of people will get in touch, say, oh, please submit to us, here's a discount code. Most of them are scams, most of them are rubbish, most of them do nothing, and they're an absolute waste of money. If in doubt, look for reviews. Film Freeway has reviews, and you can see the top rated festivals, or you can talk to people, you can get recommendations. I've just recommended the Short Cinema. I also recommend Beeston, which is a small festival, but it's really great and really good fun. So yeah, talk to other filmmakers, get recommendations from people, and see what is and is not worth going to before you enter. Otherwise, you are just wasting money for no reason, because you will get a lot more rejections and acceptances, and it can cost thousands. And finally, just a quick thing that I learned having just finished my BFI short, and I've added this. I didn't even know I was going to add this section until I did the short, because I realized I've been doing this, like I said, nearly 20 years, and you never stop learning, and you should never stop learning, and you should never stop trying to better yourself. Film school genuinely never stops. Every day, every time you do a new job, every time you step out your comfort zone, every time you do a project that's bigger, that's got backing and that kind of thing, it is a whole new learning curve, and it is important to never get complacent. You have never proven yourself enough. You have to keep proving yourself, particularly if you're a director. You have to earn the respect of a new crew all over again. So it's always worth putting in extra work. And just a couple of examples from my latest short film. This was the most I have ever prepared in my life, because I had BFI backing and there was the pressure of that, and I wanted to impress them and repay their belief more than anything in the world. It's the most paperwork I've ever done. It is the most notes I've ever made. It's the most time that I have dedicated to this film. And I am so glad I did that, because when you've been working on a script for a long time, it can get a bit stale. So making new notes, breaking it apart, rewriting it, and rewriting notes can help you remember things you've forgotten, and remember elements about the script that you really love, and things that are important, things that are not important. It helps keep it fresh when you've been in development for a long time, as we had done. And also, when you are on a film set and it is time pressured and hot and busy, and there's lights on you and everyone's running around, and you don't always have as much time to think, having a massive folder full of notes is really, really mega helpful. And it's something that I've got my folder as well. I can show, if people are interested in that, I can show that. But it really helps to have a portfolio of what your characters are thinking about, what your key goals for this film even were. Having them to hand so that you can refer to them in that pressure environment is really, really helpful. And just, yeah, always try and better yourself, always try and learn new things, and yeah, never stop, never get complacent, and always do. If you think you've done enough paperwork, probably do a bit more. It doesn't matter if you don't use it, but it's better to have it and not need it, and have notes and storyboards that you can just refer to in a moment of madness and look back and think, oh, that's why I made this film in the first place. Oh, that's how I want to do this shot. I remember now because I've got it written down. So yeah, always keep learning, and the bigger the job, the more work you'll have to do to prove yourself. So hope that was all interesting. Just a quick summary of what I think are the most important things to know from my last decades doing this job that I still love. Always be a team player on set. You never know when you're going to meet your wolf pack. You never know when you're going to meet the people that are going to help get your career off the ground. So be nice, be friendly, be memorable, work hard, and network on every film production that you're on, and start low down, work your way up, be a team player. The leap from shorts to features, it is hard, it is difficult, it is soul crushing. You get so many rejections. So don't give up, use that time wisely. And if you're having a gap where nothing's happening, think, how can I change stuff up? How can I change my career? And that's when mentoring is great. There's different ways to make money, so make sure you do it in a way that works for you and your schedule. If you're not happy, unless you're making films all the time, then maybe you do want to be making films for a living. But if you're just happy doing it the weekends and it funds your films, do that. Just make sure it works for you. Make sure you are satisfied and happy and getting your films off the ground, and just in a way that works for you and your schedule. And yeah, film school never stops. You are gonna go out those doors soon and start making films, and that doesn't mean you're not gonna be learning every step of the way. And I learn something new every week, and always keep on top of the trends, keep learning, keep reading, and yeah, never be afraid to go back to your old film school books, because I got some of mine out that I haven't touched in 10 years, and I reread them ahead of doing this short for the BFI, and I remembered things that I'd forgotten. So, and yeah, the more you prepare, the more confident you are, and you don't have imposter syndrome. Even the director of Dune didn't even he said he had imposter syndrome doing Dune. And the best way to break imposter syndrome is to be the most prepared person on set. And I hope that was all interesting. That's all my notes. Is that all come across okay, Faye?
That was amazing. Sorry, I just felt like I should have been there with a notebook. I hope my students are. Wow, that was in a good way. That was a lot. So that just like everything, we've got a lot of film students, but we've got a lot of creative students as well. And so many of it, and it's so nice of me personally, the students that I teach know, when you're sat there going, do the paperwork, do the research, I'm just there going,
I'll just
Do
grab
that.
my script from room 515, like I said, the BFI short I've just made. Let me just grab that a second. It's here. So
Ooh.
this was the most notes I'd ever made, and like I said, room 515 was my 9th short, and so to begin with, I thought I don't need to prove myself, I know what I'm doing. And then I just had a small bout of nerves, and I thought I know how to combat this bout of nerves, and this is so this is just storyboards and scripts and breakdowns, and that's more storyboards, 21 pages of that, character breakdowns, literally scene by scene how I want everything to look, lines of where all the camera lines is going to go, and right at the back is a breakdown of what every character is thinking at every point in every single scene.
Wow.
And I didn't I didn't use some of them, but because I'd done it, and any point anyone had a question for me, I knew the answer already. An actor would say to me, "Why is my character doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, I know that because I've got it here." Or my camera operator, my DOP, would want to know why we had this motivation for the lighting in a certain scene, like because it serves this visual purpose as compared to this scene later on. Because I had that all written down and planned, and I'd made a million notes, and yeah,
we've got a massive range of different types of students, but I think one thing that quite a few of them suffer with is nerves or imposter syndrome, or not having quite the confidence despite their work being very strong. And you know, even someone that's been in the industry and so successful can still have that, but you're combating that with preparedness, knowing your stuff, doing your research, doing your prep, and then
it's the only way. It's literally the only way, because you do get nervous and you do think, who am I? And when it's a new crew, and when the crews get bigger, the bigger these films get, the more you suddenly walk into a room and you're surrounded by this army of people. And I'm 5'4" and I'm female, and I'm not the most imposing person, so just being the most enthusiastic and prepared person on set, and just knowing what you want at every stage, but also knowing when to listen to people's ideas and when to say yes, it really does help. But genuinely, I was in a talk with Denis Villeneuve through Directors UK about Dune, and he was exactly the same. He was there in the middle of sand dunes and saying, "Who am I to make this film? Who am I to?" And everyone gets it at every stage. I keep thinking it's going to go, and it doesn't. And literally, all you can do is just know you're prepared, even if you don't feel you're prepared. And that's literally the only cure I can suggest for imposter syndrome, because there isn't a pill or anything, you know.
Definitely. And it's that almost when, like, you know your stuff but you're still a little nervous within yourself. It's that I always say to my students who are doing presented, fake it till you make it. We don't know you're nervous. I can't see inside your mind. So even if you're screaming on the inside, if you can fake confidence, then it becomes confidence.
And also it gives you something to do on the run up to a shoot, rather than just sitting and thinking, oh god, I can't do this. Just making loads of notes gives you something to keep you busy, doesn't it? You know.
Win-win. Right, I've had quite a few really good questions through. If you're all right to field some questions, let me have a scroll back. Right. So Charlotte, who's a second-year film student, says, what would you say is the hardest job you had to do with being part of a film crew?
Ooh. I think it's really important to remember that every single member of crew is equally important and equally experienced. Some of them, I've done all of them, and you'd think that producing is the hardest one, being top of the chain, and I just found producing really rewarding. Like, it is difficult. Finding locations is always a nightmare, but I mean, I suppose it's probably this is it's probably kind of a weird way of answering this question, but I think, having done production design, which I did production design for 10 years, the hardest thing I learned about being a member of crew is not being respected as much as others. And there are some crews who believe that the camera operator and the director are the most important people, and that's it, and everyone else is serving them. And like, even big industry players believe that, and I've always tried to make that not the case on every film shoot I've produced and directed. But doing production design, I'd have people the DOP grab the props out the way because they didn't like them, people would kick them out the way, and kind of just being respected was actually the hardest thing, particularly when you're young and you're starting out. So that kind of thing's really, really difficult. And for example, you would never touch the DOP's camera or move that. So why should the director or DOP move props and costumes, or knock the sound guy out the way or something? Not that anyone's done that.
wow.
No one's done that, but you know what I mean. Like,
Basically.
it's always kind of respecting each person's role is equally important. They're all there to serve the same goal. So be respectful of each other and let them do their job, and never think you have a say over their role. It's super important. And the other thing is working. I have done a bit of TV as a member of crew. I did a Channel 4 pilot back in the day. TV is fast paced. It's so fast paced, and that was a baptism of fire. Suddenly, like the day before the shoot, being like, no, I've got all the costumes, and then having everything change overnight, casting change overnight, and me being convinced there was no more time left, and having to find time anyway, and go rushing on the last train, going back to the shops, rushing around, buying loads of things, working all night, and making it ready in time for the shoot. Because plans change overnight and they expect you to keep up with TV. And there's money to spend on TV, so it's very much a matter of throw money at the problem till it goes away. So that was really hard. I've not done much TV, but yeah, TV's tough. You've got to have stamina. You've got to drink a lot of Lucozade to do TV. Yeah, I don't do much TV, but it's chaos. So in a good way.
That's brilliant. That student as well has also said, I saw this when she was putting it, when you were talking about networking, a student said they personally struggle with networking and just approaching other people. Is there like a starting line, a room full of creatives? What's your icebreaker if you want to share some tips?
Yeah, I hate networking too. And I got to a point where I stopped doing it, and I need to do it more now. Like I said, my main goal is to go to more of the big festivals and meet those people, because I think you tend to network in your own your own local circle and your own skill level, and you don't actually go beyond that, and you get a bit complacent. And yeah, so I think it depends what you're doing. I always have a networking buddy, because it's so much easier when there's two of you, and you kind of 2 against 1 attack people with networking. Is great. I've been with an actor who's wanted to network too, or when I did Cannes, I went with my DOP, and we just approach people that way. If it is a room for networking, people expect you to talk to them, and that's the biggest thing to remember, is just they're there to talk. So talk to them, and it's fine, and you are welcome in that space. Your words are welcome in that space. You are there to network. Usually we just open with kind of, if it's a film festival and there's just been a film on, ask them what they thought of the film. Like, oh, that film was great. Did you catch that too? That was amazing. And to talk about films you've enjoyed before talking about yourself. Or when we did Cannes, we said, so you having a good Cannes? We'd always open with having a good Cannes and start it that way. And some people really shut us down. They're like, no, I'm too important. I know what you're doing here. You're trying to network at me, and I don't want it. That person, go talk to that person. I'm having a cup of tea. And we had some of that, but usually people were just very like, yeah, I'm enjoying Cannes, So I think that's, start with something that don't just talk about you, get them talking about them, listen and learn, and talk about yourself afterwards. It's very hard when the two people are networking and they're both trying that same tactic, because they're trying to make you talk about you, you're trying to make them talk about them, and it gets chaotic. But generally, go in with mutual ground, which is the event you're at, and then ask them to what do you do? Tell me about you. That's fantastic. Tell me more. And just getting chatting that way. But always take a networking buddy, because then if you are absolutely stuck, they can tag team, go with someone a bit more confident than you. Like I said, actors are brilliant because they tend to be more confident. Take an acting buddy and just double team networking.
That is I wouldn't have even thought of that. So that's brilliant. I've got Kimberly Evans asks, which project has been your favorite to make and why?
Oh, Night Owls is my favorite. It's my baby. Although I've said to everyone during Room 515, like, their goal is to make me like this one more than Night Owls. So I set the bar. So we'll see how the edit goes with that. It's an interesting phase when you come off a film and you think it's gone really great, and then you see it in the edit. It can sometimes completely change in the edit, and you realize stuff isn't as good as you think it is. And we've not started the edit yet, so at the moment I think it's amazing. We'll see. So definitely Night Owls, because that has been my lifelong project, because it was a feature first, and because I started writing it when I was 15. I made a version of it in my teens with my friends that
Oh.
was awful, because we were all playing 30 and 40-year-olds, and we were all like 15, and my camera work was so bad because I shot and edited everything myself, which you should never do. That's a stupid idea. So it was really, really bad. And then I got to make it again once because I still love the story. And by that point, I knew all these professionals that had worked with me a few times, and they got behind my story that I'd loved all this time, and we got to make it better.
Yeah.
And I still really want to make the feature. That's one of the ones that was nearly funded by a French company in 2016, I think, and it's very, very hard when that falls through. So, but it's big money. So people don't want to spend
there's a story with Night Owls as well, as I can remember, and basically with my film students, one of the big things they have again and again and again is having talent drop out. So there was an issue, wasn't there? Well, not an issue, and maybe a absolutely brilliant thing that was meant to happen. Maybe it was fate. Do you want to tell them what happened with the actor?
Yes, good memory on that one. Yeah, this was, I mean, you always have dropouts. You always have someone, like, I always prepare myself during pre-production. It's like, who's gonna go? Which crew members are gonna be? Because commitments happen, life happens. Particularly at that level, that was an unpaid short that everyone just, bless them, volunteered to do. So paid work comes up and you have to take it. One person couldn't get the time off work. They worked in a bar and couldn't get time off work, and they had to go for that reason, which seems kind of disappointing, but it's what it is. It's their livelihood. So yeah, Night Owls is the only one where we had a complete recast, and it was a week before a week before, like we lost one and then we lost the other for completely separate reasons. One just had a complete crisis of conscience and didn't want to be an actor anymore, really, and the other one is the one that sadly couldn't get time off work. So we had a complete recast, one of which was the day before the shoot. But the acting actually was one of the strongest things about the film. Johnny McPherson, who came in for the male lead, is an actor in Emmerdale, and he's just an incredibly massive quality of actor, so professional, so well trained, and he just loved the script and loved the dialogue and applied out of the blue. Because if your script is good, people, not want to toot my own horn or anything, but people want to do it. Actors want to do good parts, and he'd been in Emmerdale for a while, kind of doing a kind of a lesser part, like a side character. So yeah, he was excited to have a main role, and people do want to step up and do main roles. So, and then the film won, I think it was 17 awards, and like most of those were for Johnny and his performance. He just kept winning stuff because it was so good. And Holly was, even though she came in the day before and it was her first ever film, she was really great as well. And just like I love the original cast, and I love the cast we got as well. It was actually fine. I was so stressed. I was so stressed with the recast. Because that's a really stressful situation, and yet it was actually fine and brilliant. And I assume the original cast would have been great. I don't know, but I know that the cast we had was great because Johnny won all the awards, So.
Brilliant. So Marshall, second year film student as well. So are there any goals you haven't hit yet in your career, and what do you feel are your greatest accomplishments right now?
Yeah, the feature thing is so hard. The feature thing is really hard. So, and I'm still itching to do it. But at the same time, like, I'm kind of glad I haven't made a feature yet. In some ways, much as I'm like desperate to do it, every time I do a short, it's like, wow, these are really hard as a director. You give everything and you kind of crash the next day. And like you need, it's a stamina endurance, and it's a short film that's 2 to 5 days is really hard. Like, imagine doing that for weeks and with very little respite and having a million questions a day. Like, I'm really glad that I'm being able to build up my stamina and get more and more experience before I do that, because that is going to kill me the first time I do it. That's going to knock me out. I want to get better at being more stamina, and like, the more films you make, the better you are. So it's going to be a better film by the time I do it. I was really hard on myself for not making my first feature at 25, because I heard of all these filmmakers that did, and I thought that's a sweet spot. I can't even begin to imagine how bad it would have been if I made a feature at 25. Or
compared
like
to what
at
it'd
least
be now.
Yeah, compared to what it would be now. Like, I feel like I would actually do a decent job now with more confidence. Of back then, I just wanted to do a feature by 25 because I'd set these milestones, and now I'm like, no, I'm really glad I didn't. You know, I think I was quite immature, and I've got more life experience and more stamina, more confidence. Like I'm so much more confident than I was in my early 20s, and I feel like I'm only going to get more confident as I go into my 40s. So I'm kind of glad. Yeah, but that's still, yeah, that's the biggie, is not being able to do that. And there is a short film called The Barn, which I've been trying to get off the ground for years, but it's a 35 grand short. There is no money for 35 grand shorts. It just doesn't, it has to be that much. And I keep trying to make it
Does the
lower.
barn fly?
No, it is a magic barn though.
Oh, okay.
It is a magic barn. It's supernatural fantasy horror.
Yeah, one of I think it was John actually said, is fantasy a particularly challenging genre to make a career in? Have you ever considered working on other genres that you might not be so passionate about, but could be easier sell?
Yes. Oh, and just quickly, I didn't answer the rest of that last question. Said my biggest accomplishments. Yeah, definitely. Stop Eject, being BAFTA longlisted was my early career high. Yeah, going into BAFTA crew and actually going fully freelance and fully employed by myself and making a living off film, and just where I'm at now, making a living for clients that I think are great and I love working with. This is a huge, it's not BAFTA, but it's like, this feels equally important to me. I love being at the stage I am now and just loving every day that I'm making films, you know. So yes, fantasy.
Sorry, no, that isn't an amazing point, because you've earned where you are now. You've put all the work in to be at a point where you can say yes or no to projects. You can come up with an idea and create it. I did
try going freelance. I remember when I was 23, I quit my co-op job. Other supermarkets are available. I quit my supermarket job and thought, I'm going to go freelance now. And I had no money saved up. I had no experience. I had very few contacts. I accepted loads of unpaid jobs because I loved doing them. And I used that time to make Stop Eject and Ashes, which is, you know, I love doing, but I ran out of money. And I just had, and I crashed and burned. And I was so hard on myself at the time because I then had to go back into normal work. I went and worked in a cinema after that. I was so miserable and I felt like such a failure. And now it's different now. It's nearly, it's over about a year or so. I'm fully self-employed now. Everything's stable. I saved up for 5 months before taking the plunge, and it's fine. Like, but it's totally different. Again, it's experience. It's the same with not making a feature at that age. It's stuff happens for a reason, and the experience level, and but also, yeah, more confident people might take the plunge quicker than I did. But I'm really glad that I have the business experience that I have now before doing it. We were talking about fantasy. I've got a tangent. Yes, when I first started having meetings with industry folks, as it were, that's an odd term, back about 10 years ago, and I said I loved fantasy, and I got into making films because of Lord of the Rings, and I'm a massive 80s fantasy nerd, and I told them I loved fantasy and I wanted to make fantasy. Yes, Labyrinth. And I remember them very clearly being like, yeah, you might want to do something else. Fantasy doesn't sell. Have you considered doing EastEnders? And and I was like, oh, what's different now is because Game of Thrones was so popular, fantasy now is selling. I then 2 years ago had a meeting at the BFI, and they were like, no, do fantasy. There's a market for it now. It's selling. Netflix, do it. It's great. So the perception of fantasy has changed a lot over the years. So if you're doing it as a commercial project, actually, there's loads of work available for that kind of thing, and it is a skill to have, and having genre type skills, it is worth doing. But it's much harder. Like I said, festivals don't like them as much. If you're going for like the respect, you don't really want to be doing that, you know. You don't want to be doing fantasy, still kind of mocked. But if you are aiming for TV and just people enjoying the experience of watching it and it not being in festivals, then yes, pursue fantasy. It's amazing. But what I will say is, if you're doing it yourself at the level that I've done with like short films and that kind of thing, self-funding, it is so hard to make good fantasy on a low budget. I've had some films in the past where like the effects have not been as good as they could have been because we didn't have much money, because it was an indie little thing we were doing for free. And when you're making fantasy, your films live and die on the quality of your effects. So whereas if you have that budget, you can be a bit more clever. If you're making a drama film and it's smaller, you can craft it and concentrate and make something of higher quality. And if you're making fantasy or genre, that kind of thing, and sci-fi, blooming heck, wow, that's expensive to make. You're spreading everything so much thinner, and the cracks appear. So I think be sensible about the budget level that you're at, and if you actually just want to make a really good film and practice making a good film and be a better filmmaker, and you only have a couple of thousand, don't spread yourself too thin. Just craft something, make something small, and make it flipping perfect. And that is better than being really overambitious and spreading out and doing a massive shoot. I'm thinking of times I've done this, and yeah, it's better to make something small if you have less money and just do it perfect, rather than make something that's kind of a bit messy in places because you're desperate to do a fantasy film. So
yeah. Have you found that like the kind of changes in technology have allowed a bit more than you used to be able to do?
Oh, definitely. I remember the first time I had visual effects and just being like, I can have visual effects now, that's okay. And early on when I first started out, you could not have visual effects. You couldn't do it from home. It wasn't an option. After Effects wasn't a thing. And it has changed over the years. It is getting easier now, but it's still, I mean, if you see like a Marvel film that's got a massive budget, and even then you kind of go, that visual effects was a bit rubbish. Imagine if you're still lower down and a fledgling filmmaker and you're trying to prove yourself and you have effects that aren't great. It's more accessible, but it's still really hard to do it well with visual effects. So I think unless you can do it really well, or if you can do it cleverly, practical effects are always good. Like pretty much always good. People are always going to love seeing them, whether or not they look perfect or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's still about being clever and acknowledging the level that you're at with visual effects. But it is a lot easier. Like I said, it just wasn't a possibility when I started out. So
brilliant. I've got a student, Cameron Mitchell's asking, with advertisements, is there any major challenges that clients don't think of when asking you to produce one?
With like the commercial type work. Yes. I think just generally they don't understand how long stuff takes. I think the hardest thing with getting that kind of work is understanding why you are charging what to them sounds like a lot. Like how much? I can't. I'm not paying that. Like you get a lot of people saying, but my friend could just film this on their phone for 50 quid. You get that a lot. That's the
I'm
hardest
sure
thing.
that'd look amazing.
yeah, that's the hardest thing, and they don't understand. They can't really see the difference. And you are selling but it'd be cinematic and it'd be all this stuff, and we'll get great kit. And often they're like, but I could save money and do it on my phone. So kind of making them see the quality and why is hard. That is the biggest thing, is understanding how long it takes because of the amount of time you put in. And I think it really helps if you break it down into how long this takes. I've started using software called Toggle, where I time how long every job takes. And then if a client asks me how long something's taken, and I can show them. And sometimes it works out less than minimum wage to them. They're like, oh, that's well, don't work for less than minimum wage. I mean by accident. It has in the past by accident happened. But you can then say, you think there's a lot of money, but look how many hours I spent on it. And breaking down the details that you put in, which they really like. You put in extra attention to detail. They want that stuff. They don't want you to cut corners. So I think it just really, really helps actually show how long stuff took, and that's why you're charging as much. And you can use examples of, well, you pay a plumber for £30 an hour, and I've spent 4 days on this. And they go and kind of compare it to things they will pay for if you're struggling with that. Hairdressing, for example, I spent 70 quid at the hairdressers the other day for half, and it wasn't even that long. And people break it down into stuff that people understand the value of, because not everyone understands the value of filmmaking. Musicians, for example, and again, they don't tend to have a lot of budget, and explaining why it's a good investment and say to them, well, you'll spend this much on an amp or a piece of kit, and that's going to serve you well for years. This film will serve you well for years as well because it's high quality. It's going to, and kind of, break it down into stuff that they would pay for and explain it. That's often a good way. But just generally, they don't know the process, and some people are quite savvy. about films and they're kind of interested in what you do. Others have absolutely no idea, like absolutely no idea. I've had, yeah, so most of my clients now are amazing, but I have had some in the past that literally have no idea how film works. And, you know, off the record, for example, I had one where I just filmed a close-up of their hands doing something, and they said, oh, could you now pull out of that and then do an anti-clockwise pan around the whole set and then end on my face? And I'm like, this is a close-up of hands. That's all it is. You were there when I filmed it. The camera didn't move around. We're in the edit now. This isn't.
No, the
That's not
machine can do
possible.
everything.
Yeah, they think you can do everything, and you know, you get a lot of people saying, "Can you just do an animation here? Can you just do CG here?" And I'm like, "No."
They take seconds.
I can find someone who'll do it, but it'll cost you more. And they're like, really? Yeah, you know, that kind of stuff is. I think it's just making people understand the value of what you do. It's really, really hard. And actually, when you break it down, like they're often getting a really good bargain. So they see it if you break it down for them. So.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I've got a couple of students who are on the same line of basically they've got a little business or they're currently in the process of making their own production company or platform, but they want to ask what's the best way to start spreading the word and getting more kind of traffic and people to know who they are when they're just starting out.
Oh, it takes a long time. It really, really does. I think for me, the thing that helped early on in the day when I was first launching Triskelle Pictures is just by connecting it to myself, as it were, and going to local film nights and showing my film and showing obviously having Triskelle Pictures on there and just being memorable as myself. I did about 10 years ago, I did a series of video diaries and that kind of thing about just taking people along and showing them my filmmaking day, and breaking down how you do script breakdowns, for example, little things like that. And I didn't do them for very long because I ended up being too busy. But at that point, I was just starting out and I wasn't very busy. And what happened is that people kind of really enjoyed seeing the person behind the business, and they got to know me that way, and they followed Triskelle Pictures through them. And it's the same nowadays. I would have done it on stories on Instagram, for example, and TikTok, and just people really like seeing the person behind the company. I know that particularly, like I said, down the line when you're going for bigger clients or bigger BFI fund type things, you want to look bigger and you want to look like a big production company. Absolutely, you have to do that. But when you're starting out, people just want to buy from people. So I think spread yourself around and take your business with it, because that's literally my first few followers I got were from networking and from having my video diary and people connecting that way and seeing my work and liking me and me just trying to be as nice as possible, even though I was super shy back then. I think people quite like that. And also, yeah, when I did Songbird and we had Janet Devlin attached, and when we did Stop Eject and we had Georgina Sherrington attached, both times Triskelle's followers just went whoop, like straight away. The moment that person shared and announced that they were working with me, those were huge profile boosters. And also, yeah, Growing Shadows, my Poison Ivy Batman fan film, like that did pretty well, really well actually on YouTube, and really well, really fast. And fan films, they don't make you any money really, but actually you're not allowed to make money on fan films. It's actually against the law, so because copyright. But they can be big profile boosters as well if that's something you want to do. So yeah, those are kind of the main ways I've boosted myself over the years. But it's been a really slow grow, and there's still room for growth now, to be honest. So.
That tip about showing yourself, because I know at least one of these students personally, because there's hundreds, but just I think one of the things all of our students have in common is they're really creative and they're really interesting people.
Yeah,
and actually thinking about it, you know, I'd love to see kind of their creative process and a little bit more like of them and what they do. So I think that's a really good idea, because that would be the thing I'd stop on social media, rather than, oh, here's a picture, here's a video, there's someone interested and they're saying something, I want to know their story.
Yeah.
That's a really good bit of advice.
With businesses, it is tempting to just put my logo on and talk about logos and talk about professionalism and properly graphic design type stuff. And again, like I said, some clients like that stuff, but those are really boring social posts. You're just showing your logo. That's really boring. When I did my Filmmaker diaries, like I said, about 10 years ago, I'd be making films, but I also would have my guinea pig on them.
Oh.
little Manny, and and I was talking about, and I shared the hard stuff too. Ashes, for example, my film Ashes, my first like professional film, that got postponed like twice, and one time it was the day before the shoot, and everything fell through. Our location fell through, and it all got cancelled. I was devastated, and for some reason I was like, I'm gonna film myself being devastated. But I was like really upset and talking about how desperately I wanted to make this film, and people saw that video and they got in touch and they're like, we'll help fund it, what do you need, let's get you back on the ground, let's get you up again because you're upset, and sharing the highs and the lows. And because I was doing those video diaries, I remember I walked into a networking thing and I went to introduce myself, and straight away they were like, oh, how's Manny the guinea pig, how's Ashes, is Ashes getting off the ground, I've been watching your video diaries. And and they knew about that stuff because I'd just been sharing the personal crap, and like, so and people wanted to support the business that way. So I just think, be your brilliant creative selves, put yourselves out there. An actor I know who played Poison Ivy in Growing Shadows, Ashlyn Diaz, she's brilliant on stories. She literally shares her day and she's like, here's me in a face mask, here's me eating a massive cake, and she just does that every day, and just little updates. And that, although that's not a company, that's an actor, her followers have just skyrocketed, just because she's just really cool and down to earth and just shares little vignettes of her messy creative life, and people like it, and so they support her. And then any films she's attached to that are crowdfunding get more money. It works that way.
Brilliant. And then I'm assuming Rosie is a creative writing student. She's put, do you often think of an idea for a film to be made into a script, or do script writers approach you, or do you contribute to writing a script yourself? What's the scripty process for you?
It's a bit of both, actually. And I will say, when you are writing your own scripts as a director, it's immediately easier to get attached to the characters. Like, immediately you know who they are and you already care about them, and it's a lot easier to commit if you've already written them. But that's also kind of not how the world works. And if you're collaborating with other writers, which often TV, for example, you get put with writers and they are more important than directors in TV. It's the other way around in film, but in TV, the director is the writer in TV is who's got the funding. Like, they're the ones that's been invested in, you just work with them, so they're really important. But it's the same as collaborating with anyone. Like, you work with a writer, they are an expert writer, they know their stuff. It's the same if you work with another DOP, another cameraman, because they're expert cameramen. You're never going to be as good as they are, because your loyalties are split between writing and directing, and you kind of spreading yourself too thin. This person is just a writer, so they are really into writing. They're going to be a better writer than you, so like technically at least. So I think it is worth collaborating with other writers, and it tends to be immediately better scripts, and they tend to be, you learn a lot from them, but it is harder to get attached to someone else's characters. You have to put extra work in, you have to know what you yourself are doing this film for, because you'll probably be attached to it for years, because stuff takes a long time to get off the ground and festivals last forever. So I do both, is kind of the short answer. But yeah, and don't do scripts for the wrong reason. If you haven't written it yourself, someone comes to you with a brilliant script and you think, this is a brilliant script, brilliant writer, okay, I'll direct that. Halfway through filming, if you are not actually in love with this story, it's going to show. Like, you can tell when you watch a film and the director doesn't love it, and you can tell when you watch a film and the director loves it. So it's a lot harder to get attached. So you really need to, if you are working on someone else's script, make sure you are personally connected to it, and you definitely have a vision for it, and you definitely have a story to tell. So yeah, mix of both. But I love writing my own films. It's like therapy, because I just get all the emotion out, and all my own stories out. So
brilliant. John's here. Does that mean we're running out of time, John?
I'm rambling on.
Yeah, sorry. I feel so bad, because this is absolutely brilliant stuff, and you've been so practical and focused in your advice, Sophie. Like, really, really kind of pragmatic stuff, which I think would be unbelievably useful for them. But I'm just aware that Julie, I can't say her name, Huradova, she's Czech, is on at 3:30, so I'm just sort of aware that time is getting a little bit tight. Sorry.
It's all right. I think we've answered nearly all of the questions now, which is good. And a couple that we've missed, you've already covered. So I just wanted to make sure everyone got their bits and bobs in, because a lot of these guys are using this as research for their next project. So I just wanted to make sure they were getting all their responses. So they have, which is good. Thank you so much, Sophie. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all the things. So me and Triskelle Pictures, we're all on there. So if you want more information, just tag along. It will be there. I'm not on TikTok though. I need to get on TikTok. So
Yeah, it's been absolutely perfect, Sophie. Thank you so much. We'd love to have you back some other time.
Thank you.
You've been really, really insightful and on it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Sophie. Got lots of virtual claps coming up. It's a weird world we live in, isn't it?
All right. Can I leave the chat now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you.
Just to everybody who's left, I was just going to say that we've got, I know it's International Women's Day, but as well as Julie at 3:30, we had the emergency reschedule for Zafar Jandra at 5. He's a guy, but he had to cancel at very short notice yesterday. He's working on a series for Disney Plus. And they called him in to the studio at the last minute. So that's 5 o'clock. He's a VFX artist. He's worked on projects like Guardians of the Galaxy, Mamma Mia, things like that. So do make sure you stick around for that. Next up is Julie Hrodova at 3:30, and I will see you there.